Welcome back to the So What. I'm your host, The Answer. This is where we take something real, something human, something honest, and we ask the only question that actually matters. So what? Because insight without action is just observation. And the goal here isn't just to understand life. The goal is to navigate it better. Today I want to talk about something that many perceptive people experience but rarely put into words. Someone shared this with me. They said sometimes people hear their tone before they hear their message. Their words might be thoughtful, clear, even correct. But the moment the tone carries certainty, the room reacts instead of listening. They said they've heard this their whole life. Parents noticing it. People responding to how something sounded rather than what was actually said, and they summed it up in a powerful image. My squareness doesn't fit in the round space. Now, when someone says something like that, it tells me something important about how they experience the world. Some people primarily react to situations. Other people perceive patterns. They see the structure behind what's happening. They notice inconsistencies early. They see where something is going long before the room catches up. When that happens, their words often arrive ahead of the room. And when certainty arrives before understanding, people don't process the message. They react to the tone. So the real question isn't whether the message is right. The real question becomes, how does someone with clear perception deliver insight in a way that people can actually receive? This is something one of history's greatest leaders mastered, Nelson Mandela. Mandela spent 27 years in prison, 27 years sitting with his thoughts, watching people, studying systems, reflecting deeply on human nature. When he walked out of that prison, he didn't just carry conviction, he carried discipline of presence. Mandela once said, "A good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination." In other words, clarity matters. But how that clarity is carried into the world matters just as much. There's a powerful story from the negotiations that eventually ended apartheid. Mandela sat across the table from leaders who had supported the very system that imprisoned him. Imagine the emotional weight in that room. History, injustice, pain. Most people would have spoken from anger. Mandela spoke from precision. He slowed his speech. He listened carefully. He responded deliberately, not because he lacked conviction, but because he understood something profound. When emotion leads the tone, people defend themselves. When clarity leads the tone, people lean in. Mandela also said something that reveals this discipline beautifully. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Unprocessed emotion poisons communication the same way. It clouds delivery. It weakens the message that deserves to be heard. Now, for someone whose mind moves quickly and sees patterns clearly, the goal isn't to silence that perception. The goal is to refine how it lands. There are a few simple disciplines that can change everything. The first is what I call the 2-breath rule. Before responding in a moment where something matters, take 2 slow breaths. It sounds simple, but it does something powerful. Those 2 breaths slow the nervous system, soften the tone automatically, and create a moment of intention before speaking. Mandela was known for pausing before answering difficult questions. That pause wasn't hesitation, it was control. The second discipline is something I call the mirror sentence. Before offering insight, reflect back what the other person has said. Something as simple as, "What I'm hearing you say is..." That one sentence changes the emotional dynamic instantly. When people feel heard, they stop defending. And when they stop defending, they start listening. The third discipline is the 70% principle. If your insight is already 10 steps ahead of the room, resist the urge to deliver all 10 steps. Share about 70%. Let the other person discover the remaining 30. When people arrive at a conclusion themselves, they trust it far more deeply than when it's handed to them. Mandela did this constantly. He didn't force conclusions on people. He guided conversations until others could see the truth themselves. And finally, there is tone alignment. People with strong perception often speak quickly because their thoughts move quickly, but authority rarely moves fast. Try speaking slightly slower than your natural pace. Drop your voice just a little lower. Let sentences land before continuing. A calm tone signals confidence. A rushed tone signals pressure. Mandela's calm presence was one of the reasons people trusted him, even when they disagreed with him. He once said something that applies perfectly to growth. It always seems impossible until it's done. Refining communication feels unnatural at first, especially for people whose minds operate quickly and whose perception runs deep. But refinement isn't about becoming someone else. It's about aligning your insight with your delivery. And that brings us back to that image. The square in the round space. Squares build foundations. Squares create structure. Squares hold systems together. So maybe the real issue isn't that the square doesn't fit. Maybe the real challenge is learning how to place that square so it strengthens the entire structure. Because people who see patterns clearly often reshape systems in ways others didn't imagine. But influence requires timing. It requires patience. It requires delivery. So what? If people sometimes hear your tone before your words, don't silence your perception. Refine your presence. Take the 2 breaths. Start with observation. Let others arrive at the insight with you. Because when perception meets patience, clarity becomes influence, and influence is how change actually happens. This has been the So What? I'm the Answer. And until next time, see clearly, speak carefully, and build the future others are only beginning to notice.